is that we have to go to a higher order than this. We can't use reason on somebody that's not valuing reason in the decision-making process. You would have, if you really want to have reason.
I do value reason. It's just we're talking about something that is not
lighter and faster and stronger.
No.
Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
All right, welcome to kind of a unique edition. Oh, not really the style and the format channel, but hey, why not? I had some coffee today, as you probably figure out. 2 sentences. I did put a little bit of a coffee. What do they call it? Coffee liqueur. That's what they call it. 42% or 42 proof coffee liqueur. So I end up stuttering a little bit. That's probably why, but I haven't really started drinking it yet, so it hasn't affected me yet. And I only put literally 4 drops in. It just has a little flavor. But anyways, welcome to the NonSequitur Show. I am streaming live here, and I do have a Twitter space open. I already Theo there, who is PhD in CPUs, so he's really smart on computers. Hopefully he'll have things to add to this. He is well aware of the argument. He knows logic. PhD in computers, so he's pretty smart. But to kind of give you guys a backstory, I recently, as you guys know, I'm on Twitter more than I was on YouTube because I wasn't feeling well. Now that I'm feeling better, then I'm starting to stream a little bit more. But I also wanted to branch out a little bit more, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put my argument on Reddit. Not a fan of Reddit. Never have been a fan of Reddit. But I was like, okay, let's see if the atheists there are any better than the atheists you find on Facebook and Twitter. Fun fact, they're kind of not. But I did have some interesting points brought up. I did have some people that were able to apprehend the argument, but then I had the same diatribe and rhetoric that I normally get. Oh, this doesn't prove God, which, again, this argument absolutely no relationship to the ontology of God, so I don't say that. They just assume something, which is something that we in the debate community needs to stop doing. If you're going to be in the debate community and if you're going to have discussions with theists, you're going to be logical, you're going to be reasoning, your arguments and articulating your points and discussing counterpoints to other people's arguments, then one, you need to at least be able to steelman their argument, apprehend their argument, at least conceptually have the basics of the argument, and not just assume that the argument is arguing. So that's what I find happen there. So I do have some examples. Pope Dillahunty disagrees. Oh, what a shame. What a shame that Pope Dillahunty. A fun fact there, skeptic. I told people, as you guys know, Matt Dillahunty no longer self-identifies as atheist. The term agnostic atheist is nonsensical. His words. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And he's absolutely right from his perspective, which is not the perspective I use, but the end result is the same. And it is funny because the reasoning that he used for why he no longer identifies as an agnostic theist, agnostic atheist, is that knowledge is a subset of belief, and that agnostic atheism as a lack of belief, which he uses, doesn't make a lot of sense. It is ambiguous, and it is. And I've proven that many times over. And a lot of people that know Matt know me, and we have a lot of mutual acquaintances, and I know he knows my arguments. And every time that comes up, agnostic atheist, he says the agnostics are right in that, and then he goes into a long diatribe, an a-hole, which is kind of funny because just a few minutes before I went live on Reddit, which I'll show you here in a few, somebody says Steve McRae is an a-hole, and his argument doesn't make any sense or something like that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna use my intro to atheological a-hole. Perfect, right? So my intro was a little bit longer than usual. I apologize, but it gives people time to get their coffee. But I'm having the stream for people that want to apprehend this argument a little bit better. It's not really a complicated argument. I did formalize it, but unfortunately, to formalize it, you need to use logic, and a lot of people don't understand logic, and I get that. I really do. But this was really, to me, I hate to say an experiment, because it really wasn't an experiment, obviously, but it was something to me I wanted to see, obviously, of how atheists approach arguments, right? Or at least the lay atheist, the mainstream, the atheological atheists that subscribe to the atheist experience, the Pope Dillahunty acolytes, so to speak. And I find that they do not know how to argue. They do not understand even conceptually how an argument is supposed to be articulated or how to be rebutted. I'm not saying that I'm a pro at it by any stretch of the imagination, but all of us have been in the debate circuit. I've had my share of debates. People know this. So I think that I at least have some standing in the debate community to at least give my opinion on that, take it for what it's worth. But when you tell somebody your argument doesn't argue what it's, you tell somebody your argument is arguing something that it doesn't argue, you're automatically strawmanning them by definition. By definition of a straw man, if you want to be prescriptive, which I'm not, which is another thing that people could understand, descriptive versus prescriptive. And I will tangentially talk about that for a second before I dive in. A prescriptivist would argue that the definition tells you that if you meet that definition, you are that. So if I say by definition 0 factorial equals 1, that means if you see 0 factorial, just by mere definition, without any proof, without any a priori knowledge, without anything else, just by definition, then it equals 1 in mathematics. By definition. That's prescriptivism. If you see atheism is defined as a lack of belief, that's not prescriptivism. That doesn't mean if you lack a belief, you're an atheist. What that means is an atheist can be described as somebody who doesn't believe in God, which is absolutely true. Everybody agrees upon that. I agree upon that. Everybody agrees upon that. There is no atheist that believes in God. It would be a contradiction. But by the same token, you can describe a theist as somebody who does not believe that God does not exist. That describes a theist. Same exact thing. You can describe a theist as somebody who doesn't believe there isn't a God. That is an accurate description. But of course, it's not prescriptive, because anybody who doesn't believe there isn't a theist. Same reasoning that everybody who doesn't believe that in God is not an atheist. And so, Theo, are you still here? I see you in the Twitter space, but I know you ran off for a second. Okay, hey, welcome. All right, Dr. Theo. By the way, I just call you Dr. Theo, which that's your handle. Is that cool? Yeah, no, I know I know. I didn't. Okay, whatever you. I don't remember. It's been. I mean, I remember your name. It's been so long that I don't remember if you're comfortable using. All right. So what up, buddy? So first of all, it's been a while. Welcome to the NonSequitur Show. You remember this argument, I assume? And did you end up? I think you ended up kind of agreeing with it, didn't you? I remember. Okay,
Seems
so
to
we're
have
back.
to refresh.
Yeah, we're back now. All right, thanks, guys. Sorry, I don't know what that was. A little. Back now. Let me know if you guys can hear everything now properly. Anyways, where was I at? Oh yeah. So again, if people are able to understand this particular argument, then obviously it's not word salad. I might have been buffering at the time, but I was saying that the people that say, "Hey, Steve, I think I can understand your argument. Is this how it is?" And I say, "Yeah, that's it. You're correct," or at least kind of nudge them in the right direction. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for atheists to say, "Hey, this is word salad," because those atheists are not on a level to even start these kind of conversations. And they don't want to be. They're not trying to be. When they say this proves God, which is ridiculous, as somebody who is a non-believer, I'm trying to help the atheist community. I want the atheist community to succeed against evangelistic Christianity. I want the atheist community to succeed against young earth creationism. I am an advocate for that. So what I do is I try to help atheists, as they're in my camp, so to speak, of non-belief. So when people say, "Well, Steve's just a closeted theist," I'm like, "Well, what the frick God do I believe in? Are you kidding me?" It's kind of ridiculous, right? It's very low-level argumentation. And so if you go through, these, there are some decent ones. Like here's Dr. Grebe. He says, "I think your argument is correct, but I don't think its conclusion has immediate consequences you seem to think for the presumption of atheism. Your argument shows that weak atheism is logically the same position as agnosticism and symmetrically weak form of theism. That much seems correct." And it is correct. I mean, so here's somebody who's able to understand. I don't know what he's a doctor in. This is Dr. Grebe. He's able to understand it fine. So if he's able to understand it fine and actually wrote a well-articulated response, he kind of summarized this, and I'll get back to the Twitter space here. He summarizes as basically, thinking into the way of the legal sense of somebody who's innocent, right? That Dr. Flu's argument. And my response was very succinct to him, and I probably should have gone into more, but I think this kind of explained it all, because the reason why we shouldn't use the legal argument for the presumption of atheism is that, as Dr. Burgess Jackson notes in Rethinking the Presumption of Atheism, he says that there are 4 types of possible outcomes for any kind of judicial trial in a criminal trial. There's an innocent man goes free, an innocent man goes to jail, a guilty man goes free, and a guilty man goes to jail. In the legal system, 2 or 3 of them are judicial errors, right? Something happened that was wrong. The guilty man going free is an error. An innocent man going to jail is an error. But we as Americans hold that an innocent man going to jail is a larger, more morally egregious error, judicial error, than a guilty man goes free. That's why we have a presumption of innocence. But there's no such need for presumption of atheism in these types of dialogues. You have God exist and you have God does not exist. Those are the only 2 ontologically possible scenarios. If God exists, the theist got it right. They believe in God. They got it right. If God does not exist, the atheist got it right. They believe there is no God in the philosophical sense, which is what I use. So somebody's right. Either the theist are right or the atheist are right. So if you just hold atheism as a lack of belief, you can't be right. I'm an agnostic. I cannot be right for my position. My position, I bite the bullet. I am ontologically relating to ontology. I'm wrong. I admit this. I have to bite the bullet on that. But epistemically, I'm right. Because epistemically, that's the correct position for me to have. But I'm not necessarily wrong. Okay, I shouldn't say I'm wrong. I'm not right. I mean, I haven't chose the right answer yet. So I haven't chose the wrong answer. So I'm not wrong, but I haven't chosen the right answer yet. I haven't played the game, so to speak. Theists have played the game. They believe that they won. Atheists have played the game. They believe they've won. And if God exists, theists win, and atheists, if God doesn't exist, atheists win. But if you don't play, you can't win. That's me. I'm the agnostic. The weak atheist, the lack of belief atheists, they cannot win until they take a position. I cannot win until I, because they're the same position. And so that's why one of the reasons why we don't use that. I hold that you don't use that for. But anyways, I did put in here a new post on Reddit, which is a kind of a cesspool pool, and I will be getting to all these different things. I've tried to get to them a little bit. Here's a guy that wrote, Steve McRae is an a-hole. That didn't impress anyone the last time you posted it. You're not getting anywhere with this time. Well, I've gotten places with it. In fact, this argument is very well known. I haven't had anybody in any way show that's in logical error. I had one person, Dr. Jonathan Pritchett from Trinity Radio, have one word that was wrong. And it was related to a subalternation. So it was a very technical thing, but he was right. And when I went on Trinity Radio to have a discussion with Dr. Braxton Hunter and Dr. Pritchett, before the show, he obviously read the paper and found that one away, which means he understood the paper. And as soon as I found that error, I read it, reread it, went to myself, damn, right. You know what I did, Tim? Guess what I did? Anybody want to take a guess? I got Tim here. I got Brandon. I got B+. Any of you guys want to take a guess what I did? After I found the error?
Up to it?
No, I blocked him forever and cursed his soul for 7 generations. What the hell's wrong with you? Yes.
Bye. Yeah, my bad. I may give you the classic prompt. Bye.
Yeah, no, I fixed it and I thanked him for it, and then we had the show. But yeah, so I corrected it. When people say that I'm intransient, that I cannot fix my stuff, or I don't own up to an error, they're absolutely wrong. Find me an error and I fix it. I've literally demonstrated that just before the show when I was on Trinity Radio. I don't know how many months ago it was. It was quite some time ago. I think it was. But nobody else has been able to do that. And it wasn't a logical error. Logic has been thoroughly vetted, but it's just a word error. That's all. Like I said, he was right. Do I need to refresh this to update on Reddit? I really am not a fan of Reddit. When I post stuff, it just spins sometimes. Like here, like this, it just gets removed. Sorry, this post will be removed. Okay. It's just ridiculous. Here's this guy, completely incorrect. 27 minutes ago. Can you guys in the Twitter space see this? B+ Cam. Cam, are you following?
Sorry, I keep muting myself because there's stuff going on in the background.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I appreciate that. Can you read this on the YouTube?
I'll have to go pull it up. Give me a second.
Excuse me. All right, so I'll read this. B+ is here. So, it says, from the standpoint of logic, the default position is to assume that no claim is factually true until effectively justifies, which are deemed necessary and sufficient to support such claims have been presented by those or advancing those specific proposals. Well, there's a problem with that. One, logic has nothing to do with that. There's no logical standpoint. Logic doesn't care classical logic at least doesn't care about your epistemological approach. There's something called a theist. And a theist believes God exists on faith, which is non-justified. It has nothing to do with logic. There's nothing. Okay, I see Tim. What is logic about that? We're illogical. We're talking about logic. We're talking about actual logic, formal logic. We're not talking about reason. Right? We're not talking about rationality. You can argue it's a rational belief in God without evidence. You could. I'm not necessarily believing that position, but the theist is an irrational position. It's irrational because it's neither rational nor irrational. It's a position that just believes in God and faith. And some people can argue that rationally, so they can take it as a rational position, but it's not a justified position. It's just they can rationalize it themselves or whatever, but it's still not justified. You can argue it's a non-justified position. That's fine. But it has nothing to do with logic. I don't know what this guy's claiming already, right? And here's the thing. Why would that matter to my argument, to the audience? If the default position is to assume that no claim is factually true, why does that matter to my argument? My argument is factually true because it's a logical proof that's valid and sound, and that drives a conclusion from simple premises. And it's so funny because if you actually read my paper, which is which I'll get into in a second here, which is basically a reductio ad absurdum. Even though I define my terms very, very clearly, if you actually understood the paper, you would realize that the way I'm defining atheism is the same way Google is defining it: disbelief or lack of belief that exists. If you really understood the paper, that's essentially what I'm doing, and then showing why that is a problem, which is a reductio. And when people say, "Oh, well, you're not using the definition of atheism," first of all, there's no specific definition. There are many definitions of atheism. And it's funny because years ago when I said atheism is not merely a lack of belief, which American atheists would always say atheism is only or just a lack of belief, it is not the positive belief that God does not exist. Now atheists are realizing that's wrong, even though years ago they fought me tooth and nail on that, but now they're like, yeah, okay, there's multiple definitions of atheism. But has the American atheists fixed their stuff? Nope. Will they ever? Probably not. It's so funny. So now atheists realize that I was right and I'm still wrong somehow. Can anybody explain to me how that's the case, that I'm still wrong after I've been shown right, and now atheists agree with me? When I argued that 5 years ago or longer that atheism was polysemous, now they're arguing that's polysemous when I was told that was interesting. So he goes on to say, if you tacitly accept that claims of existence are causally or factually true in the absence of necessary and sufficient justifications required to support such claims, then you accept that what amounts to an infinite number of contradictory and mutually exclusive claims in existence and causal explanations that cannot logically at all be true, which is absolutely relevant to my argument. What he's saying is that you shouldn't accept bare possibilities, which Russell would agree with, right? Russell says that bloats ontology. You accept every little thing that's possible, it would blow your ontology. So sure, arguendo, I'm agreeing with this guy. Just be simple. But what has it got to do with my argument? And weigh in on that? Feel free to jump in, guys. Hi, Blackbird. I recommend. Quiet in the light. You guys are quiet in the Twitter space. I see you guys. I'm trying to get some interaction with you guys in there. I see all these people in the Twitter space, but
I'm a little distracted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, trying to fix a 3D print, so it'll.
No worries.
And it's at the same time, which is probably rude. So.
No. I appreciate you being in here, man. I really do. It's like I said, I always enjoyed talking to you. You were one of my more favorite guests because even though I didn't understand 90% of the crap you were saying, I enjoyed it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I thought your presentation was brilliant, man. I had never seen, when you were on the show and we did a show on CPU clockage, I never seen any of that before, and I was enthralled. I was like, get in a candy store. If that was me back in like junior high and high school, you would have been my savior. You would have been my Jesus, man. Because I was really. Am I kissing enough ass? Am I? You enjoying that? You like that?
Just I don't know. Maybe just a little too much. Do it a little less. You're gonna tell me that I'm like. You're gonna tell me I'm wrong about some stuff too.
Oh well. Yeah, I'm gonna find something, dude. I'm gonna find something. Did you subscribe to Flat Earth now?
The magazine?
Wait, is there?
No, I don't know.
Jared, oh my God, you just gave a multi-million idea to Jaronism. Start a Flat Earth magazine. Oh my God, what did you do, Tim? What did you do?
Oh man.
Oh,
yeah, we should publish a magazine called Flat Earth.
Red should.
No. I know what to call it. Flat Earth Global.
Oh my God, we're stealing that, dude. We'll give you accreditation, right?
There you go.
But we're stealing that. I'm talking to Reds on that. We're gonna start a what is it? A Kickstarter?
Kickstarter, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Don't sue me for taking your ideas. Me made it public. Blackbird, I saw you raise your hand. Do you want to add to this? Come up. You have to invite everybody. But I saw a hand. Blackbird. All right, so going back to this, this is just completely irrelevant. Then they say the only way to avoid these logical contradictions is to assume that no claim or evidence or causality is factually true until effectively supported via the presentation of verifiable evidence and or valid or sound logical arguments. So you see this right so far. This is wrong. My argument is correct. This is all irrelevant. All that's irrelevant. What does that have to do with my argument? First of all, he's arguing evidentialism. He's arguing, I would say, strong evidentialism. Strong evidentialism is basically essentially a position that if you have sufficient evidence to believe something, you're obligated to. It's more of an obligation for strong evidentialism, right? You have an onus to believe something if given, rather than weak evidentialism, which just basically should have evidence for your. So let me ask the argument. So let me ask the live chat so far. I think we all agree so far that completely incorrect is wrong. How many of you guys agree that so far in 3 small paragraphs, this response from 27 minutes ago, well, that's one, is absolutely relevant to my argument? You see how these things waste my time? And when I literally got like 50 messages yesterday, maybe even 100. It was a lot. It was a lot of messages. I would say it was 100 if you included Twitter. But it was at least 50 plus just from Reddit, maybe 60, 70 just from Reddit. And I have to parse all this stuff. I try to read every response. And so I wade through this, and already about a third of his argument is a waste of my time because there's absolutely no relevancy to what I'm talking. You got kicked off X for using my VPN? Oh. Why? Why can't you use a VPN? Why can't you? Well, can you join without the VPN? B? I was appreciating your. That's weird. I never heard. Go on here. Then he goes on to say, atheism is a statement about belief, specifically a statement regarding non-belief, aka a lack of absence of affirming belief in the claims, arguments asserting the existence of deities, either specific or general. This is an assertion, which I'm arguing if you define it that way, there's problems. That's my argument. If you define it that way, there's issues. This guy's just by fiat saying that that's what it is. Well, it's not. Atheism is the belief that God does not exist in academia, as standard in philosophy. This is well substantiated now by Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Oxford Handbook of Atheism, Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy, and many other places that says that atheism as standard or as the most accepted is the belief that God does not exist, which means in a peer-reviewed paper, unless you have some kind of marking of the word, if it's just a word simpliciter, if you see the word atheism in a peer-reviewed paper, you are to assume that the author is connoting the understanding of the belief that God. Proposition of theism is false. So that's called unmarked in linguistics. And so that's how it's understood. So when somebody says atheism is a statement about belief, that is true, but it's the belief that God does not exist, not the. He goes on to say that atheism is a state about knowledge, statement about knowledge, or specifically a lack of knowledge or an epistemic position regarding someone's inability to obtain a specific level of degree about something. Well, the problem with this is you already switched domains of discourse. We are talking about the ontological domain of God. God existing, God not existing. When we're talking about beliefs, we're talking about propositional beliefs, which can be argued are a subset of psychological beliefs, but they're not psychological beliefs as in, I would argue that all propositional beliefs are psychological beliefs, but not all psychological beliefs are propositional. Maybe that's a good way to put it. I'm not going to die on that hill, but because propositional beliefs are truth apt, psychological beliefs are not truth apt. Although it could be argued a distinction, but it's kind of irrelevant. Basically, a psychological belief cannot be true. They're not truth apt. Agnosticism is a psychological belief about a belief. It is a second order belief. And in the ontological or psychological domain, the agnosticism is a position that you neither believe God exists nor believe that God does not exist. It has no relevancy to knowledge. As soon as you start talking about knowledge, you're not in the right sense of the word in these types of discussions when we're talking about God existing. We're not talking about knowability. That's a different proposition. The proposition, can you know God exists or God's knowable? That's a different proposition. You see the category error here that this person's making. It's a very common category error atheists make when they say agnosticism is a statement about knowledge. That's the same category error when they use words like disbelief, and they don't understand in logic disbelief means to believe false. It's an epistemic disposition that your state toward the proposition is that the proposition is false. I disbelieve P is understood as I believe P is false, but that's not how the word can be used in general parlance usually. Or not, I should say that's sometimes not how it's used. If I said I stared in disbelief, that has nothing to do with a proposition. That is a psychological state of my mind. It's not a truth app thing. There's no relevance to the proposition. It's just saying I stared in disbelief, which means I am unable to accept what is going on. That's a different sense of the word. So if I say I disbelieve P, that doesn't mean I stared in disbelief on P, that I am unable to believe P. It is just I believe P is false. Disbelieve P is equivalent to believe not P. They're the same thing in epistemology. Everybody good on that so far? Everybody good?
I had to drop I got a new cell phone, and when I downloaded Exit, it had the mic off, so I went into settings, turned it on, and then it crashed me, and then I couldn't find the space.
Oh,
and then I couldn't find the space. I'm like, good grief. Anyways, go ahead.
And who's this?
This is Blackbird. Blackbird.
Okay, hey, Blackbird.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Got anything to weigh in so far? You would like to?
No, because I didn't hear. I was gone for like about 10 minutes because I got
I heard
booted.
you weren't. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Well, here we go. So, audience, feel free to weigh in on that. Argued about agnostic. Knowledge is a completely different sense of the word. In the epistemological domain, if you want to argue about knowledge, that's fine, whatever. I'm not going to even get into that. I have my own issues with that, but it's nothing logically of importance. But agnosticism, when you're talking about the ontological status of God, is absolutely nothing to do with relevancy with knowledge. Any paper you read will not say that. Any paper you read about agnosticism on God existing is always going to be the psychological position of being agnostic, where you have no position. It has nothing to do with the nobility of God. So already this guy is making a huge mistake. But you notice how matter of fact they are about this stuff, right? It's just Dunning-Kruger, seriously. And by the way, you know what's so funny? Somebody's like talking about how many viewers. I'm happy if I have one view. I don't even care. I do this for myself. I'm enjoying streaming now for the first time in 8 months, and that's all that matters. And people want to watch. That's great. If they don't, that's too. I have, like I said, I got 50 to 100 messages. My time is I spent 6 hours answering questions for people of my own time. That means something to me, that people are having those types of dialogue and people are agreeing with my arguments. So that's all that matters to me. And it is, it is what it is. So, I'm not a person out there looking for publicity or stuff like that. I've been there. I don't like it. It has caused nothing but problems. There were some very dishonest, as we all know. And it took a lot for me to get this channel back. And I'm going to stream on it. And I'm going to stream what I want. And that's it. End of story. I don't have to answer anybody except for YouTube, right, in terms of service. But other than that, nobody can tell me who I can have on, who I can't have on, what I can do, what I can't do. I don't care. Isn't that great? The freedom of that is just amazing. It's so liberating. So liberating. So like I said, 1,000 doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I do this for myself, and I appreciate people that are in my Twitter space right now. And I see Savanil. It never comes out. Savanil. I'm just going to say Savanil. I see you. Welcome. Good evening to you. And thank you for becoming, a member of the channel. I see your comments all the time in the comment section. I try to respond to many of them. I know you do write a lot of stuff. I can't get to all of them, but I do read them. And your arguments are pretty well thought out many times. May not agree, but I appreciate it. Thank you for being a member of the channel. And I will be. I'm trying to do non sequitur every Sunday. That's my goal. 4 times a month, at the minimum. Goal. I just, like I said, had stream on what was it? Junk DNA with Dr. Casey Luskin from the Discovery Institute and Dr. Dan, and that was great. That was a great episode. And that got quite a bit of views. It was promoted by Evolution News. So we're struggling, but we're pushing through, man. I do have some other debates coming up. I'm working on. I have some very interesting guests that I've been reaching out to that want to come on. We're just working on time scheduling. I am going to be on some other channels who invited me on. And so, yeah, like I said, I'm feeling better and I'm make use. So I go on to say, he goes on to say, as I've never been presented with or have no knowledge of any sort of independently verified evidence or logically valid and sound arguments which be sufficient and necessary to support any of the claims that God exists, should exist, or possibly even exist, I am therefore under no obligation whatsoever to accept any of those claims as having a factual validity or ultimate credibility. Again, what does that have to do with my proof? What does that have to do with my argument? Absolutely freaking nothing. Nothing. All this so far, all this is absolutely irrelevant to my argument. Does anybody disagree with me? Anybody disagree that this has any relevance to anything that I've argued? And who is this guy again? Hobbs 305.
What's your argument? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not like up to speed on what you're talking about here. I haven't read anything, so I apologize for that. But can you give me like the Cliff's notes of what your argument is?
Yeah, sure. So basically, a couple years back, matter of fact, I'm going to bring it up here. Simple English. But basically, years back, I wrote a simple argument that if you use atheism, results in I call semantic collapse, meaning the term atheist, theist, and agnostic represents the same position, which seems to be at least a veridical paradox, right? It's an absurdity. To call somebody an atheist, theist, agnostic is seemingly absurd, right? So it's a veridical paradox, which means a paradox that isn't actually a paradox. It just seems that way. But if you use terminology, as atheists often want to do, that's what happens. And so I wrote a formally valid logical proof that's sound. The premises are true. Anybody who denies the premise, well, then they're not a belief atheist. They've already proved my point. And so I wrote a more formalized version of it that I put on Academic EDU, and it basically goes like this. I'll read it the simple English. I say, if you adopt the usage of the word atheism as merely, quote, lacking a belief in God exists, you hold the same position as a theist who, quote, lacks a belief that God does not exist, which is logically the same position as agnostic. So by calling weak atheism by just atheist impliciter, no modifications, then the theist can call weak theism by just theism simpliciter. Else it is special pleading. Another argument I had called the WASP argument, special pleading argument, which is then logically agnosticism. This results in collapsing of terms whereby atheist, theist, and agnostic represent the same position. So that's basically my argument. And I know you're not watching.
Yeah, and I agree with your argument. So where does that leave us?
Oh well, nowhere for you because you already agree with it. I had put my argument on Reddit recently, which is what I'm reading now.
No, but I mean I agree with it, but like just in terms of like, so in other words, I don't know how to say it precisely, but basically, I think what you're saying is that we all have specific beliefs, and maybe here's a better way to say it. No matter if you're atheist, agnostic, or a theist, you can't prove your positions.
Well,
so we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, no,
that's what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
No, it's not
okay.
at all. It's actually not all of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, my argument has no relevancy to proving or disproving God. My argument is strictly an epistemological argument that if you adopt what's called weak case conditions, you have to bite the bullet or accept that your position is the same as a weak theist. If you're a lack of belief atheist, if you're somebody who just says atheism is merely a lack of belief, you are a weak theist. You're agnostic.
Yeah, but you say the word if. You say the word if as if, is there a different way to approach it then?
Yeah.
Or is that what you're suggesting? Okay.
Yeah, atheism is understood as the belief that God does not exist in philosophy is standard. And so if you adopt the usage of atheism as the belief there are no gods, or that the belief that theism is false, the proposition of theism is false, then you don't have this problem. You'd avoid this type of semantic collapse. You have, if God exists, theists are right. If God does not exist, atheists are right.
So when you say, so when you say theism is false, what does that mean?
It means that God does not exist. Oh, so me, yeah, it means that God does
So,
not
so
exist.
you're not saying like any particular religion or anything like that. You're just saying
There is, if theism
your
is
position is that God absolutely does not exist.
no, that's not my position.
Okay.
I don't take a
Sorry,
position
I'm not
on
trying to put. I'm
No,
not
no,
trying
this
to
is
put your
great. No,
words
this is
in your
great.
mouth. Yeah.
No, I don't take any position on it. I'm an agnostic.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
if the proposition of theism is God exists, if it's wrong, that means God doesn't exist. No God.
Right.
And I mean any kind of God. And so if there is a God, then theists got it right. They may not have the right God, right? I mean, that might be true, right? If Vishnu is the God that exists, then Christians got it wrong, unless you're a henotheist. Kind of smuggle that in a little bit.
So I think then maybe what you're trying to, where the motivation behind you making this point is that you're trying to argue that everybody is basically agnostic.
No.
Right?
No.
Okay.
No, why?
Right.
There's people that believe in God. There's people that believe that doesn't God. How would they be agnostic?
Well, so then it's a choice. Then
yes,
I
you
guess
have a choice.
what you're saying.
You have a choice to believe something. You have a choice to disbelieve something, and you have a choice to what's called suspend judgment, which means you don't take a position.
Right. Okay.
And so
but
I don't take a position.
But it's an individual choice, I guess, right? Yeah. I guess. Do we agree on that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. What is your? Can I ask what your position is?
Well, my position is I just like to argue with atheists who claim that they're like on the side of science and there is no God, and I'm like, you don't even know science. So I'm
I
more.
do. I know a little
but
about
I am
science.
Christian. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not saying you in particular.
Cool. So I can argue the atheist position. I can argue it probably better than most of them. I can argue there is no God. But that's not,
I've seen
that's not my
you.
position.
Yeah. Most of the ones there's some really smart atheists for sure,
and there's
but
really
they're
dumb
not on
ones,
X as far as I could tell.
There are a few.
The ones on all the ones on X. There's a few. I ran across a few of them, but most of them, as far as I can tell,
with Reddit,
are just
and same thing with
they're
Facebook.
just trolls.
Yeah, no, I get. Yeah. This has been my argument for a very long time. That the atheists need to up their game. But there are some great atheists on Twitter. There's Jeff, Secular Outpost. He's great. Big fan of Secular Outpost. There's also, Graham Oppie used to be on a little bit. But there is who else? Oh, come on, I'm drawing a blank here. There's not very many of them. That's the problem. Chris from Hereticals. How can I forget? Hereticals is great. Love that guy. We're going to be streaming some stuff too, hopefully.
Yeah. It's funny.
Go ahead.
Is that it seems to me that most of
you're breaking up.
The atheists kind of X started or have any while. I'll listen for a while.
Yeah, you might be on Wi-Fi. But yeah, good. We have an understanding there. And yeah, a lot of my following is Christians. A lot of my followers are atheists. My points can be used for either the atheist or the theist. If theists want to use my points, they can. They can argue against the atheist, the lack of belief atheist. Go ahead. But I'm really trying to help the atheist, not the theist. But of course, it's coextensial, right? If you use my arguments against atheists, the theists are going to jump on that, which many of them have. Dr. Braxton Hunter has. He loves my argument. He's still waiting for somebody to debate me on it on his channel. He's been putting it out there. Hey, these papers, great. Who wants to debate it? And I cannot find anybody who actually wants to have a debate on his channel on this subject. None of us can, because we get stuff like this guy on Reddit, who so far has not said anything that is correct, has said nothing about my paper, nothing about my argument, nothing. This is all relevant, because he's just talking about he shouldn't accept God exists. Okay, what does that got to do with my paper or my argument? Absolutely nothing. Let's continue on what he says. He says, in short, I have absolutely no justification whatsoever to warrant a belief in the construct that God do not exist or should exist, or possibly even could exist. Irrelevant. Which is precisely why I'm agnostic atheist, as defined above. I don't know what that means. Until somebody shows me a coherent model for agnostic atheist, it is nonsensical, or at the very least ambiguous, depending on how you want to word it. I don't know what I don't understand agnostic atheist, even when they put it in English, because the schema they used is ambiguous. So I reject agnostic atheist. Matt Dillahunty rejects the uses of agnostic atheist. So I don't know what that means, and I still can't find anybody to beat me on that. It has been a long time. I'm like, okay, look, I put my argument in logic. Why can't they do it? And I'm not talking about complex logic. I'm not talking about first order. I'm not talking about heavy epistemic logic. I'm not talking about modal logic. That stuff gets complicated very, very quickly. And I'm not claiming to even have a proficiency in any of that. But I do understand basic entry-level classical logic. I've written primers on it. I'm not a logician. I'm not claiming to be a logician. But like I said, at least we have Tim in here who took logic, basic logic. I think he would probably admit that this is first year stuff. And so I'm not writing this stuff in any kind of real complicated way. I just using what I find to be the standard, I guess, in academic literature for logic, and then going from there. My schema is based upon Dr. Demi's schema and Dr. Burgess Jackson, which are peer-reviewed papers. So I have to just use modal logic. I'm sorry, not modal, meta logic. So I'm not asking for a lot from people. And so he goes on to say, a lot of people in the Twitter space, 100%, yeah. Come and by the way, if you're agreeing or disagree, feel free to come up, listeners. I see you agreeing out there, in my Twitter space here. And then he goes on to say, logician, yeah, somebody in my live chat, logician. Logician is somebody who studies logic. Not a logistics, but a logician. Logician. How do you pronounce logician? Yeah. He goes on to say, in short, I have absolutely no justification whatsoever to warrant a belief in constructed God or do exist, should exist, or possibly could even exist. Oh, I'm sorry. He goes on to say, please explain in specific detail precisely how this position is logically invalid, epistemically unjustified, or rationally indefensible. Additionally, please explain how my holding this particular epistemic position imposes upon me any significant burden of proof, which in regard, I'm sorry, I'm butchering this. One drop, or a couple drops of liqueur got to me, I guess. Additionally, please explain how my holding this particular epistemic position imposes upon me any significant burden of proof with regard to the position of the non-belief in the purported existence of deities. Okay, I'm going to respond to him right here. Sounds like wrong. And no. Because he typed it a lot. I'm doing multiple things. I'm not really that bad of a speller. I'm a bad speller, but when somebody just writes something like short, then I respond to them short. People know that I kind of give what I get. So he wrote a long thing, and I don't want to feel like I'm ignoring him. I did read out what he said, but I cannot say the relevance of your argument to anything. I really is a bad typer more than anything. Even though I've typed all my life. I discussed this just nothing. Okay, so that's fair, right? That's fair. You guys can see what there. It just has no relevance. What does this have to do with my argument? B plus says, is there any way to call in without Twitter? I can't because oh really? You can't get to work with your account? Yeah, there is, but the problem is I'm doing it in Twitter space, so I would have to have something or StreamYards, and then I mean no, because then if I do a StreamYards, then the guys in the live chat hear you, but not the Twitter space. But next time I will, if I can. Plus, I'd like to get your input on. All right, let's see. Let's read the next one. Too long, didn't read. Then why are you commenting? Okay. Nobody cares about your thesis. Really? Then explain to me why I've been invited on multiple channels to discuss my paper. All right. I mean, I'll be going on JCO's channel next week or this week maybe to discuss it. So this again, these are who pointed out earlier, Blackbird, that this is what we deal with in the atheist community. Instead of actively dialoguing with people and actively having conversations, This is just the trollish community that we see, which is a waste of everybody's time. This is why I'm saying atheists need to up their game. When you see atheists like this, if I don't even believe in God and I see this, what do you think a theist is going to think? Like Blackburn is a Christian. What is she going to think when she sees something like this? You're going to be thinking, oh, atheists are stupid. Atheists isn't that a good sound clip? People are going to clip channels are going to love that. Steve said atheists are stupid. Not what I said. Well, it is what my locution was, but not my illocution. I don't believe at all that atheists are stupid. But this guy right here, or girl, whoever, Southern Ice, I'm going to put it in probably not very intelligent. Because they're not even willing to. And by the way, how do you explain to me this? Okay, so everybody out there, because you guys know I like critical thinking. Somebody explain this to me. How is it you can argue something is too long, didn't read, but it's garbage? How does that make sense? How do you know it's garbage if you didn't read it? And they said you had your spotlight yesterday. Well, yeah, but what I posted here is in English, not logic. Please give it a rest. Why? Why? And don't abuse this or other forms for self-promotion. Finally, don't respond. I really don't care. It's nothing to do with self-promotion. I wasn't even intended to stream on this. And is this guy a mod? I don't think they are. So you posted on 3 different Reddit forums yesterday, spending some 7 or 8 hours going back and forth to announce to the world how brilliant your thesis is, which was met with stern rebuttals or cold indifference. Okay, so what? I'm usually on Twitter or Facebook. This is the first time I've been in Reddit in ages. I just wanted to get the lay of the land of these types of atheists on Reddit, and they're just as dumb as the atheist ones on Facebook. You cherry pick what Respondu cut and posted numerous times and made references to obscure persons. Dr. Graham Oppie is obscure. Dr. Graham Oppie. This is what I'm saying. This is the level of intelligence of what we could call the new atheist or the atheist plus community. The internet atheist, the angry internet atheist. This is how dumb they are. If you argue that Dr. Graham Oppie is obscure, how am I supposed to take you seriously? Like seriously, like somebody answer me. Which support your position in the end is meaningless and nobody cares. People care. I got people listening. I got people on the Twitter feed. I've been, like I said, I've been invited on people's shows to talk about this. My paper is in the top 2 or 3% on Academic EDU with 3,500 whatever views it is. That's really good, by the way. If you go look at some of the other things posted at Academic EDU, they usually get about 2, 3, 400. Some of them get maybe 1,000. I've seen 1 or 2 that are 4,000, very rarely, and mine's pushing 4,000. That's pretty good. And so I know I didn't cherry pick what to respond to. I tried to get you everybody that I could. If I spent, again, let's look at this critically. This is what we do here. How is it that he admits that I spent 7 or 8 hours going back and forth, and then he says you cherry picked. How is that cherry picking if I spent 7 or 8 hours? Clearly, I was engaging with the people that are willing to engage and not just troll like this person was doing. You see, if I can analyze this and see the issue, you know there are theists out there that see the same thing and go, yeah, these are just dumb atheists. Then he says, there is your tone, like a manic, obsessive, responsive, there in your tone, tone placing, and manic, obsessional responses are frankly worrisome. Do I sound manic? Do I sound obsessed? This is just epistemology, which I happen to have an interest in. It's so funny because people are like, it's so funny. Anything you advocate for, all of a sudden, quote, a troll will say is obsession. I mean, if I advocate for logic, I'm obsessed by logic. If Tim here advocates for, a good computer system, good computer modeling or whatever, he's obsessed with computers. He has a PhD in computer science. He's obsessed by computer science. Anybody can make those throwaway negative rhetorical comments. That is not how you debate. That is not how you discuss. So can you see why I condemn the low-level, low-tier atheists? Because they make us as non-believers look bad. And unfortunately, there's not enough people giving these types of people responses to explain to them these types. Please give it a rest and try some humility. Well, if I'm right, I'm right. Why do I need to be humble in that? Sure, okay, fine, I'm humble. Whatever. How is that relevant? Why do people really care about people's emotional states or whatever when they're right about something? I don't care about your ego. I mean, Matt Dillahunty is probably one of the most egotistical persons I've ever met in my life, right? But people will say he's right on certain things, he's wrong on other things. If you continue on this path, your colleagues, I got colleagues, students, and editors will despise you. Why? Again, finding you insufferable. So what? Matt Dillahunty is insufferable. He's pretty popular. Why would that? Why is that an argument? Your work, as desperate you are to promote it, will be forgotten, irrelevant. And again, not an argument. You are not some misunderstood genius. Please, for your own sake of argument, abandon this notion. So this is called ad hom. And that, so this literally is ad hominem fallacy, right? Because he says, initially he says, right, this is incorrect, right? Oh, nobody cares, it's garbage, right? Because he says it's garbage, which is saying I'm wrong. And then he goes to say that I'm wrong because I am insufferable, that I am lacking humility. That literally is what the ad hom fallacy is.
Hey, I'm going to get going. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, bud. I appreciate it, man.
Sure.
Have a good
Take
one.
care.
And I'll get with you later.
Sure.
Thanks, bud.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. That's a lot of words to say. Some people use the word atheist when they should be using the word agnostic. Yes or no? I don't know if you should be. It would be a more. That's all. Not should. Maybe. What is funnier that in his definitions, he actually creates a category weak theist that isn't actually a theist. That category, I didn't create first. B. And that goes back to right second. If you read my abstract, right above the abstract, I quote Graham Oppie. And I say, he says, for if we accept that there is a distinction between strong and atheism, weak atheism, we should surely accept that there is a similar distinction between strong theism and weak theism. Strong theists reject the claim that there is no gods, while weak atheism merely refrain from accepting the claim that there are no gods. Apostrophe. Weird. Maybe it was before. They have it big, so big. I have to fix that. I have to update that. Or maybe that's the way it's written. I don't know. While weak theists merely refrain from accepting the claim that there are no gods, and then we shall have it that agnostics are both weak atheist and weak theist. So you can see here that Graham Oppie came up with that, not for me. So post that. I mean, again, not my definitions, and it's, Dr. Graham Oppie is certainly not obscure. And then, okay, so this guy says, no, because a theist with a lack of belief that God doesn't exist, doesn't believe in God, or wouldn't be a theist. Well, you can argue that somebody who doesn't believe there isn't a God isn't an atheist by the same rationality. And the atheist doesn't. That's why both of them are considered agnostics. One believes in God and the other doesn't. But again, if you frame it in negation, then it's the same thing. An atheist doesn't believe there isn't a God. Both agnostic and Gnostic theists are theists, and agnostic theists and agnostic atheists are agnostic. Again, where do you get that from? That's just made up stuff. Nowhere in academia do I see the terms agnostic or Gnostic theist except in passing. Dr. Draper mentions it twice, I think, in SEP, and he actually says if atheists really thought about it, they probably wouldn't use it, is basically what he's saying. If he says basically, if people really took pause, his words, take pause to think about this, he seems to imply that they shouldn't even be using it. And then it's used once to my knowledge, by Dr. He wasn't even a doctor, he was a pastor. He was a evangelistic Baptist by the name of Flint, Robert Flint. And he was a contemporary of Huxley at the time, Thomas Henry Huxley. And he used the term agnostic atheist to mean something completely different. His days, agnosticism was a normative epistemic position that you shouldn't base your beliefs on anything but science. So Huxley developed a normative epistemic principle that if you cannot ground your beliefs in science, then they're not justified. That was originally what he coined the term agnosticism. And that's how Flint was using it in 1903 when he wrote agnosticism. He had no relevancy to how we use literature. So that's the only other time I've seen the term agnostic atheist. And like I said, Dr. Draper uses the term Gnostic with a G, atheist, but only to describe why people shouldn't use it that way. He says, what do you expect by gain by complaining how people use language in the way that makes perfect sense? It doesn't make perfect sense. My argument. It doesn't. And like I said, what am I supposed to write on this? From the person, I just usually say, show me logical schema where loaded in all right, next one. Man, this is okay. See how look at this. Look at all this, and this is just, and I haven't refreshed the page, and this is only since I've started 52 minutes ago. Right. So, when people say, "Oh, I cherry pick," well, no, I try to get to everybody. I really do. This guy says it doesn't apply to theism, though. Do you have any reasoning? So he says, do you have an argument? Atheism would probably mean that God does not exist, but that's simply because it doesn't. And I wrote, if you have a valid reason why atheism can, then just apply that to theism. It doesn't apply to theism, though. Why not? P or not P? U P P. Okay, so this guy says, why should we care? Okay, irrelevant. Again, why do we take atheists seriously who just be like this? It says literally debate an atheist. The forum is literally debate atheist. This is have. I mean, come on. They say you present it. Oh, I didn't know this the other day. You can actually copy paste with a little greater than symbol, and it quotes it for you. I didn't know that. He says you presented nothing here but logical fallacies, which is completely not true. You presented nothing here but logical fallacies, and nothing pointed out to you over and over again. Really? Logical fallacies? Are you sure about that, mate? Fallacy. I literally took logical fallacies in college, so I'm really interested in that. From what I recall from my coursework, I can't type. In informal logic, I am pretty confident. Until you show how you're able to present a coherent logical argument, why should we want to write a single second failing live on the NonSequitur Show? Okay, well, I have it. That's the whole point of the paper. this. Sorry, I got a little quiet there. I'm tired. I'm focusing. I apologize. I should be reading this at the same time. Let me know if there's any logical. And you know what? I'm also going to do this for him. By the way, this is kind of why I wanted somebody in the Twitter space there, come up to fill this kind of dead space. I'll get back to it. Takes a few things to do. So I spent, like I said, I spent 6-7 hours doing this, and yet I cherry picked, which is copy and pasting. And see how it just spins here? It doesn't update. It goes through, but it just spins in Reddit. I don't understand that. It's really silly. Fresh here. True. It usually does, but sometimes it doesn't. I gotta go way back where and find where I wrote this. See, where did I gotta go back and find where he wrote this because it won't let me do anything while it's spinning. You know how annoying Reddit is? I don't like it. It's really, really stupid. I was gonna write more to that person. Where was he? Where was he, guys? Now I can't see. Now I can't find it. It's not. Did his post disappear? So I responded to this guy. All right, so you know, an ad hom fallacy, like I said, is somebody saying that you're wrong because it's about you. He failed, but this guy failed to show any errors in my logic. Can you have him jump on stream? I don't think any. Of course they won't. They're cowards. They're absolute cowards. But I really wish I had. I saw where that guy wrote. I was going to give him more because he wanted. He was like, was it that guy? Wait, was it that guy? No, it was somebody different. Man, this sucks. I wanted to copy paste him because he asked for my argument, right? More. Like this guy, the OP is conveniently forgetting about null hypothesis and the burden of proof, both of which are irrelevant. No, I mean completely irrelevant. But you guys see what I deal with? It's so just incredible. And I'm very succinct, right? I mean, because I don't want to waste my time. But see how it just it circles here, but doesn't go through. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And like what? Because this guy was saying old craving. So let's refresh this and see if my post went through to old craving. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, neither are relevant. See, it did go through, right? But it just was. All right, but anyways, I'll get back to the Reddit thing. I want to go over my paper real quick so you can guys actually see the argument before I kind of go through and end the stream. I'm not going to go through the whole. 30 minutes. But this is basically my paper. I define my terms, as people always say, define your. Okay, theism is a belief that God does not exist. Weak theism is the non-belief, which is basically, so again, I'm not going to go through the whole paper, but for people that want to understand this, and if you look here, front here, it says Steve McRae, top 2%, 3,676 views. Philosophy, epistemology, philosophy of religion, logic, 8. Top 2%. So some people are reading my paper, 3,676 views. People are reading it. People are talking about it. That's a lot of views. So the difference between weak and strong, the best way to think about that is by the location of the negator with respect to the proposition and the predicate. And what I mean by that is that if the proposition is P, and if you see that tilde, which not, that means not P. And if you believe not P, then that's strong atheism. It has no relevance basically to conviction. And it does tangentially. I shouldn't say have no relevance, right? Because if you're a strong atheist, that means you believe there's no God. So you have some measure of conviction, which is stronger than merely a weak atheist, even though strong atheism is a subset of weak atheism. This is why I don't like these terms. I do not like strong and weak atheism. I think they should be eschewed. I think they should be avoided. I think they have issues. One of which, of course, if you use weak atheism, then this paper shows why you shouldn't. Why we should reject Blues and Treaty to think of atheism in the negative. But it also presents other problems, which I really don't get into a lot. But one of which is the problem is that as a subset of weak atheism, that's where the strong atheist. But strong atheism is an actual position, but weak atheism technically isn't. Agnosticism is, and so there's kind of a problem there epistemically, because if you're saying I don't believe something, you're not taking a position on it. So it's a kind of a non-position direct. I mean, it is a position, but it's a second order position. But as far as the weak, that means that the negator is on the predicate B, rather than the proposition. So if you see not BP, means does not believe P, which is weak because the negator is on B and not P for that particular negation. That's the best way to think of it. Then I go on to say atheism, the belief that G is false. And again, this is not prescriptive. This is where a lot of atheists make their huge mistake. And Oflamo, yeah, I saw that you were streaming earlier. I wrote something to you in the live chat, but I saw you going over my paper. But this is not prescriptive. What it says is that, if somebody believes there's not a God, okay, that describes an atheist, right? If you say I believe there's no God, doesn't that describe an atheist? Sure. What else position would you have for that then? It describes an atheist. I've had people argue that against that. I'm like, where's your mind on that? If I say I believe God does not exist, and you don't want to call me an atheist, what are you going to call me then? How does not describe an atheist? Are you dual streaming, Flamo? Interesting. And then 3, agnostic, the non-belief of G and the non-belief of negative G, not G. Which means that if you don't have a position either way, yes, I'm still doing this. Yes, of course. I want people to be critical thinkers. And if you saw the amount of response I got on Reddit, oh my God, people need some help with basic common sense and reasoning and logic and and critical thinking, because they don't even know how to approach an argument. And so anyways, that's how I define the terms. Weak atheism is the non-belief of the position G, and that's basically atheism, weak atheism. If you want to call it strong atheism, you could do that too, but it's irrelevant. But that's how I'm defining the terms, and this is based upon the definition of atheism in Google, which describes a person who either lacks a belief or believes that God does not exist, which is a poor way of defining it, but whatever. That's my argument. But Google's definition is, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, person who disbelieves or lack a belief in the God. That is not prescriptive either. That doesn't mean that if you lack a belief in God, you're automatically an atheist. It just describes somebody who's an atheist. If I believe there's no God, I lack a belief there is a God, isn't a God. So if I am an atheist and I believe there's no God, I lack a belief in God. There's an entailment there. I shouldn't say. I don't want to say there's an entailment. Technically, it's an implicature. I had that discussion with Dr. Demi when I first had him critique this paper, because my work is based on his work. Argument was that I should use the word implicature more than entailment for certain reasons epistemically, and I agreed with him. I need to avoid using entailment, really mean implicature. And anyways, I define by using metalogic, using Dr. Demi's approach, his schema, his logical model, where O is a logical model, with some model theoretic semantics, which basically means there's relationships. And in that model O, I define contradictories, subcontradictories, contradictories, contraries, subcontraries, and subalternation, using phi and psi, or psi and phi, or phi and psi here. And I just basically say if and only if these conditions are met, these are prescriptive. I would admit that, if and only if, right? That these are the logical relationships for a square of opposition. And I explained the square of opposition using building logic, truth tables. All these have been vetted many times over. Many logicians have read this, so if you find an error, I'd be very surprised, because a lot of logic people have gone through this with a fine-tooth comb, including Dr. William Pye, who did a review on it, and he found no errors. I mean, he's a PhD in mathematics. Again, this is first-year stuff here. Some people told me this is second year, third year. I don't believe that. I admit this is probably intro level to logic. I'm trying to say it's anything great. That's why people say, oh, people don't respect your genius. And I'm like, it's entry-level stuff here. What does that say about them? Let me ask you guys this in the live chat. Chris says, yep, I've read it. Great paper. Thank you. Let me ask you this. What do you think about somebody who says, oh, you think you're a genius for writing it? And I'm like, this is entry-level stuff here. If you think this is genius-level stuff, then you would know absolutely nothing about the subject matter. What does it say about them? How ignorant they are about the subject matter if they think that somebody who writes this thinks they're a genius. That's just weird to me. I fully admit is intro-level stuff. That's my whole shtick, is that as an entry-level person who, yes, I've had college. I admit this. I've had 4 years of college. I just didn't finish my degree. And I did take, informal logical fallacies. But you don't have to have a formal education for this. That's my point. And have I been in logic a long time? Well, building in logic. I mean, I used to, do stuff with TTL circuits and CMOS circuits. So you have to know about truth tables. I did have a ham radio license when I was 13, which requires a little bit of understanding of gate. I remember studying gates, what an OR gate is, what a monostable 555 timer does, or an astable 555 timer. And then I was a store manager for Radio Shack for 6 years. I came in as a assistant manager. Then I moved into location. I went to be an associate. Then I went back to assistant manager. And then I went to manager. So I was a manager at the store for like 3 years. And, you do a lot with chips, right? You had 555s, 556, quad operational amplifiers, things that relating to Boolean logic and gates. So, I did have that, and that was, years ago. So that's just basic stuff. But anyways, I set forth my definitions, and then I show them in how they relate to what's called the square of opposition. And the square of opposition is an Aristotelian square. It usually deals with all SRP, right? Categories, some SRP, no SRP, and this is how you build syllogisms. Different, what's called modes of syllogisms. You have many different modes, and I think, don't quote me on this, but how many modes are valid in systematic logic? Is it 23 without looking it up? Will somebody do my legwork there? Because I'm not going to look it up right now. I'm just guessing. I think there's 23 modes of syllogism. But anyways, this shows that there's relationships there that can be used for semiotics, which I didn't create the semiotic versions. It's called Grice Grimace squares. So I'm using what's already out there to show by using symbiotics with the square of opposition, which somebody else, has long since done, do any of that work, obviously, that you could apply it to this argument. That's exactly what I did. So in a nutshell, you have theism, which is belief there isn't a God. Atheism, theism that they believe that God exists. Atheism, belief that God does not exist. And again, somebody will say, well, you define atheism wrong. Well, no, I'm not defining atheism prescriptively. I kind of am in my paper, and I will admit, I'll bite the bullet on that only for my argument because it's a reductio. So I am prescriptively arguing it in my paper that this is the premise. But there's a nuanced conversation behind if my argument is descriptive. I'm only arguing descriptive as far as my arguments, but in my paper, you can say probably that maybe it is prescriptive because to be used in the argument. Local prescriptive, soft prescriptive, as Ozymandias Ramsey II once upon a time we had a discussion on this thing, and he said, I would argue that what you're doing is soft prescriptive. I said I like that. I'm stealing that. That's how that. So, and the reason being is if you believe there's no God, what else you want to call that position? Atheism. So that's this up here, and then down here you've got does not believe in God, which both of them, according to Google's definition, both this side of the square are constitutive of atheism. If you believe there's a God, or you don't believe in God, if you believe that God does not exist or you don't believe in God, then both of them are going to be theism. So this side of the square is both atheist, according to Google definition, if you prescriptively use it as such, which you shouldn't. That's the problem with that. That's what some atheists do. They take the definition in Google and they run with it prescriptively. But that's what they're arguing, is that if you believe this, if you believe there's no God, or if you don't believe in God, then you're an atheist. And all I'm showing is that if you take this side of the square, then by symmetry and logical consistency, you have to take this side of the square. And so a theist is somebody who believes in God, but it's also somebody who doesn't believe that God does not exist. Because if you argue that these two are atheism, you have to rationally accept that both these two are theism, or else you're special pleading by my WASP argument. Then I also show by logic that if you don't believe in theism, right, if you don't believe in God, then if you don't believe that God does not exist, if you don't believe in atheism, you're here. And if you don't believe in God, you're here. And what that means is S for subject, G for the proposition God is not exist, right? G is the same thing as P here. It's proposition. S is subject. So these lines here are just relationships. There's a contradiction between theist and not theist, right? This is not theism down here, by the way. This is when somebody says when atheism and theism are the same thing. No, they're not the same set. This proves this. This literally proves this by logic that atheism and theism are not the same set. Because theist is a contradiction to not theist. P or not P, A or not A. And if you instantiate A with theist, what's your not? Not theist. A or not A is always true by the law of negation. You can also show it by the law of excluded middle. Also show it by the principle of bivalence. You can also probably show it by the law of contradiction, probably. There are many ways to show that theist and not theist are contradictions. A or not A. So A or not A is this right here, this contradiction line. Theist, not theist. That's why not BSG is not theist. Because they're contradictions by logic. It doesn't get you to atheism up here. Right? This term right here doesn't get you up here. But they call this atheist. That's why they say atheism is the contradiction of theism here. But it isn't, because this part of the set is not included into this. So this right here is a proper subset of this, by definition of logic and what a subset is. That is prescriptive. If this is non-theism, right? This is not theism because this is a contradiction of theism or not theism. Then this category of people that fall here, which would be strong atheism, as some people like to call it, is a subset of weak atheism, which is this. And if weak atheism is a contradiction of this, then atheism itself is the conjunction of this and this. And you can also describe it as this being a subset of this, or implicature. If you believe there's no God, that implies you do not believe in God. So this implies this, which is a contradiction to this. So this proves, by logic, this proves unequivocally that logically there is no way to argue that atheism and non-theism are the same position unless you just want to say atheism and non-theism mean the exact same thing. But the problem with that is you still have this group of people up here, right? That is a proper subset of this. So what do you call this group up here that's a proper subset of this? Well, I call that strong atheism, they say. Okay, but strong atheism doesn't mean that you're a direct contradiction to this. Strong atheism is contrary to this. That's what these little lines mean. And what that means in logic is, if we want to call this strong atheism, is that theism, if true, means this is false. If atheism is true, theism is false. And here's the interesting part. Neither of them can be true at the same time. And neither of them could be false at the same time. That's what a contrary is. That's what's defined up here prescriptively, if you want to argue soft prescriptivism, by contraries. Contraries is psi and phi are contraries if and only if, in the logical grouping or logical schema, is entailed or defined, it really is entailed, that basically it's just saying not phi, not psi, not psi, not the conjunction, I'm sorry, of psi and phi, and is not entailed by not the conjunction of not phi and not phi. Again, gets into the meta logic. But all this is saying by using logic is it's contrary if, back to the square, it's contraries if this is true, this is false. If this is true, this is false. Neither of them are true at the same time, and neither of them are false at the same time. All this definition is saying. Okay, so you don't even have to know the logic. You really don't. You don't have to know what any of this means, logic. All you have to know is looking at the square of opposition graphically, if you're a graphic learner like I am, that both of these can't be true at the same time. Right? Either God exists and theism is true, or God doesn't exist and strong atheism, if you want to call it that. But again, atheism and strong atheism is the same position in philosophy. Because again, if not, you run into problems. If you want to call this atheism, then you're saying atheism is a subset. Assuming atheism and theism are the same position, you just subsumed agnostic. You've just removed this position, which presents a whole other slew of problems. Now you're saying nobody can have a position either. Because if you have a position either way, you're automatically an atheist. Because if I do not believe in God and I do not believe God does not exist, I fall into this. So agnostic, being a subcontrary, is one of them cannot be true. If one is true, the other is false, vice versa. But one of them can be false. They both can't be true, but one of them can be false, which is defined above. And so, if this is false and this is false as far as my belief, now again, you gotta be careful. We're talking about beliefs. We're not when I'm talking about atheism, theism being contradictory in this particular schema. It's very important to note this. I am really talking about belief statuses. Unfortunately, it still is true for the square, and so it can be confusing because we're talking about here as an agnostic, somebody who doesn't believe this and somebody who doesn't believe this. So I can hold the position where I do not believe this is true, do not believe this is true. If I do not believe this is true, and I do not believe this side is true, I am at the conjunction of this and so the people that argue weak atheism is same size set as theism, then they're basically just assuming this position. So Graham Oppie argues it's a dishonest move. And it is a dishonest move. It really is, because a theist can do the same thing. If the atheist here can argue that this is assumed into this, then a theist could argue that this is assumed into theism. It's a square. If you argue this belongs here, then the theist can argue this belongs here. That's it. So, anyways, that's this in a nutshell. And then I go on to give more. I basically show the argument. And I conclude that we are therefore forced to conclude that by accepting the entreaty of the presumption of atheism, have atheism be understood in the negative or weak case condition, it would semantically be possible. Right? This is a key phrase. Semantically possible. By subalternation to merger for S to be an atheist, theist, and agnostic at the same time, due to semantic collapse, given the allowance of labeling of the weak case conditions, subalternations of as theism and atheism. This semantic collapse renders these terms therefore ambiguous or as best redundant, and consequently we should reject the request of the presumption of atheism to have atheism understood in the negative to avoid semantic. And so, real simple, all that's saying is that, go back to the, I do want to show the, when you go back to this, saying that if you accept this as atheism, then this is assumed into this. The theist can say this is theism and this is assumed into this, therefore they cancel each other out. And any reason, any rationale you have, assume this into this and call this as part of this, theists can do the same thing. And again, this is basically a subset of this. Right? The strong position is a subset of weak. And again, I do want to make it very clear, this is not talking about ontology here. It's talking about beliefs. Believe it's true, you cannot believe it's false. Believe it's false, you cannot believe it's true. Believe it's false, you don't believe it's not false. And if it's not true, you don't believe it's not false. So that's why they're contraries here. Not about the ontology of God. It is true that theism is true if God exists, atheism is false. That is true. But it's also true about your belief, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about beliefs, not ontology. In the doxastic domain. All beliefs has nothing to do with knowledge. If I hold the position God exists, that means I don't believe that there isn't a God. And if I hold the position that I believe there isn't a God, I don't hold the position there's a God. Those are contradictory. Or should be the contraries. Contradictions are theism and not theism. That's a hard contradiction. Either you're a theist or you're not a theist. Everything that's not a theist falls into the not theist by complementary set. Which is funny because on Reddit, people were arguing complementary sets and they got it wrong. They're like, oh, atheism is the complementary set of theism. No, it's not. No, it's not. The complementary set is this, not theism. Theism, not theism. That's what this is down here. Again, A or not A. A complementary set is a set in the universe that if you're not in one set, you're in the other set. Everything that's not a duck is in the set of duck. Everything that's in the not in the set of not duck is a duck in the universe. So everything in you is either A or not A. Everything. That's a true true complementary set. So I just proved that basically the atheist who tries to subsume this into this, where this is all atheist, that anybody who believes there's a God or anybody who doesn't believe there's a God is an atheist, the theist can make that exact same move. Anybody who believes there's a God is a theist. Anybody who doesn't believe there isn't a God is that's all it does. And there's no justification that I've seen that allows for atheists to make that move, but not theists. None. And if you appeal to the dictionary, that's a fallacy. That's called argumentium ad dictionarium. Because if theists started using theism to mean anybody who doesn't believe there isn't a God, then the dictionary will reflect that usage. Right? Because dictionaries, most of them are synchronic, which means they give the definition in usage in general parlance, and that they use what's called sensu lato, which is basically broad sense, specific. So if theists started using theism to represent anybody who doesn't believe there isn't a God, then the definition for theists would be disbelieves or lacks a beliefs in the non-existence of God. That's what it would be. That's what the dictionary would go to if theists would do that. But theists don't make that move because it's dishonest, and also their religion, their Christianic beliefs, for the most part, or at least I'd say most religions, wouldn't allow for that because they're holding tight to the position that there is a God. They're not just merely lacking a belief that there isn't. They're telling people that there is a God. They're out there arguing there's a God. And atheists who don't argue there isn't a God really have nothing to say on that. Sure, they could, show why the atheist is, or show why the theist is wrong, but they're not taking a position for themselves. They're agnostic, like I am. They're just calling it atheist. And sure, they can argue against the theist. I'm not saying they can't, but the lack of belief atheist logically is an agnostic. There's no way out of that. I think anybody who knows logic or philosophy has accepted that that they've accepted my argument. And then I go on to say the canonical positions are this: theist, and again, according to my argument, believes God. Not even that, but this is just basic logic. Theist is somebody who believes there's a God, who doesn't believe there isn't a God. Atheist is somebody who believes there isn't a God, who doesn't believe there is a God. An agnostic who has no position either. Doesn't believe there's God, doesn't believe. These are the canonical relationships in logical. Simple as that. And so this position here, the agnostic position, which absolutely does exist. I can prove it right here. It does exist logically. So when you have people saying there's no such thing as Gnostic because there's no third position, they don't understand. They have a conceptual error because what they're doing is they're just making a strict dichotomy between this and this, which eliminates this because this is subsumed into this. So if you say there's only atheist and theist, you've just eliminated this position. So yeah, what you're saying is theist or not theist. Because you can see here theist or not theist, right? Not, a little not. So either a theist or you're not a theist. You believe there's a God or you don't believe in God. That's literally what this is. Believe in God, do not believe in God. Because again, we're talking about beliefs here, not ontology. Don't believe in God, you're down here. You believe in God, you're up here. So that is a strict dichotomy, mutually exclusive, jointly exhaustive. You either believe there's God or you don't. Matt Dillahunty says it all the time, right? You either believe or you don't believe. He's right. You're here or you're here. That's it. No other positions you can. I mean, these are subsets. This is a subset of this. This is a subset of this. Is a subset of. Sorry, this is a subset of this, and this is a subset of this. But they're subsuming this into this. That's all they're doing. And so when they say there's no third position, that's because they make a dishonest move. They're calling this atheist. But in philosophy, there is a third position. We all know this now. All can prove this now. There is a third position. That is a position of either having a position either way, which is this. This is your third position. Position where you do not believe it's true and you do not believe it. That's why when you have a lack of belief, you are contrary to standards of philosophy. You're contrary to logical understandings and rational implications. And I don't take lack of belief serious. I don't take lack of belief atheist seriously. And here's the thing. This is why I don't take lack of belief. This is the kind of responses. Just like this. Too long, didn't read, nobody cares about your theory. So anyways, that's my TED Talk for you guys today. I will be responding to Reddit later on tonight after I. Feel free to join in on the Reddit discussions. I'm still doing my Twitter stuff on Twitter. And I'm not asking people to lose, Reddit, but if you wish to go to Reddit, under Ask an Atheist, my post. Feel free. I think. Chris Taylor says it's quite easy to understand, so I'm not sure why lots of lack getting it because they're stupid, Chris. I don't know what else to argue. They're just trollish. They're just ignorant. And people say, well, ignorant is ad hom. No, it's not. It's an objective measure that I have that they're unable or unwilling to understand something. That is, to me, ignorant. That's me giving my, I shouldn't say objective, the subjective evaluation. It's funny. Objective and subjective have been used so many different ways. They have many different senses. So I can argue that I'm objectively, without bias, arguing that I'm subjectively evaluating them. Right? That's the problem with sense of words. But this is the kind of just low-level argumentation that I get. Steve Morgan says, it goes over my head. I'm not surprised that people don't get it. Does it really, Steve? I don't think it should go over your head. Happy if theists just don't believe that there's. Hank says, who wants to merge streams? I tell you what, I'll come on your stream if you want. I'm gonna wrap this up, Hank. Would you like me to come on your stream? But I'm gonna wrap this up. Thanks for watching, guys. Any questions? Feel free to leave a tip in the comment section. I could use a little funding. Not hurting, I'm not starving or anything like that. I'm not in any finance. Managed to pull ahead a little bit. I do like to treat myself a little. Go out and have beer or something. I was on indica to help sleep, but now I'm taking sativa. Try the hybrids, but I think I like the sativa the best. I sleep like a baby. Either sativa or indica, I sleep like a baby. Yeah, indica I probably sleep a little bit better. Sativa gives me that little for well-being. It's made a difference. It really, really has. So I'm not saying that I would, but just. Or, I should say, it goes to a lot of things. It helps in other ways. Thanks, guys, for watching. If you guys want to share this video, please do on social media. Get it out there because I want my argument promoted. Not I want the argument promoted because I think that it is a indication of the state of atheist low-level argumentation. They really need to up their game. And that's not all of them. There's a lot of atheists out there that absolutely understand, absolutely agree with it, and they have taken it on board. They have become strong atheists and become better at debating Christians. When you look at Chris from Hereticals, that dude is a strong atheist. He was a lack of, but he read my stuff and like, damn, Steve's right. He's absolutely right. And why not take a strong position? Not. Oh, tell the theist there's no God and show them the arguments should be that they are epistemically more rational to believe that you're not going to prove anything. But you can certainly argue that atheists have better arguments. Why it's more epistemically rational? I don't think it has to do with rationality. They can definitely argue there's more evidence. I'm not talking about science, philosophical, epistemic evidence. When people say there's no evidence for God, I discount them. That's my position. You say there's no evidence for God. It'd be like having a discussion on math. I have nowhere to go. Because we're not talking about science. There's evidence for God, there's evidence against. D.L. Mackey wrote a book called The Miracle of Theism. Great book, very dense, but it has arguments for God and against pretty much anything you'd ever want. It's a holy Bible of arguments. So why would somebody write a book? And Mackey was a atheist philosopher. Why would an atheist philosopher spend time not arguing, but showing the evidence for God and showing the evidence God does not exist? So anybody who says there's no evidence for God, just immediately think you're in your head. You're dealing with somebody who has no. Hank for $5 says you deserve a coffee. Thank you. And right now I got a little bit left in my cup. Hear me swigging here. Got good coffee. Well, no, I am frugal. Really am frugal. So anything I get, I really appreciate, guys. And I do read out all the super chats that I can on Trollish. And any super thanks that I get in the comment section, I will read out next time. But I bought this really cheap coffee and I bought this really good coffee. And I found if you kind of mix them together, it's pretty good, actually. Pretty good. I don't mind it. And so I basically don't have to spend as much on coffee because coffee can get really expensive really quick. And I will join you on your channel. Go from there. So I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Very long-winded. But I missed you guys. But thank you for watching the Non-Sequitur Show. Please leave me comments in the comment section and go to Reddit and discuss your things. I'll be on Hank's channel. Give me about 5 minutes. Go make another cup. And Lamo's channel wants to put the link in there. Go over. Just put your channel. Send it to me on Twitter. Next Sunday, if I don't find. Oh, I'll be streaming on my other channel, Steve McRae. I still got stuff on that. Good night.